Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to this special documentary of our sports show. This documentary, which we're entitled the Global Stars of the WTA in terms of ladies, women tennis, in terms of the top 200 players in the global tennis games from all around the world, from countries such as United States, Russia, Germany, France, Great Britain. Some of the players that have been on the tour circuit, in some cases for the last 10 years, some of the breaking names, some of these stalwarts will join us in this special documentary series to tell about their life story in tennis, the highs, the lows, the perseverance to get to their top, and what is a lowly sort of profession sometimes, the pursuits to be a professional sort of tennis player, to dedicate your life to 365 days a year, to be constantly traveling all over the world playing professional tennis, what the commitments are involved. And today's guest, I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Laura Siegemund. Laura Siegemund is a German professional tennis player, born in 1988. She came from West Germany in Filderstadt. She turned pro in 2006. She has 2 career titles. She won the Swedish Open in 2016 and she won the Stuttgart Open in 2017. Her highest ranking in the WTA Tour circuit was number 27 in the world. Her career record is 529 wins to 353 losses. So she has a win percentage of over nearly 60%. Her Grand Slam results: Australia Open, the third round in 2016, 2023, and 2023. French Open quarterfinalist in 2020. Wimbledon second round in 2019. As a singles career, she's won the US Open. She came the third round in 2016. But she's also in the doubles career with her partner Vera Zvonareva. She won the US Open in 2016, and her singles career in the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, she got to the quarterfinal in 2016. Laura, first of all, tell me, growing up in Germany, and my knowledge of Germany is, in terms of sporting country, is that football is the #1 sport, and then for women, I do believe field hockey is very prominent in terms of its sport, and volleyball and maybe handball. So where did tennis come for you in terms of starting up as a child? Was tennis your first love, or did you pursue other sporting interests?
No, I mean, it is true that soccer is definitely the #1 sport in Germany, but then tennis at that time, in the 80s, it was absolutely booming with Boris Becker and Steffi Graf. So even in the 90s, that's definitely a time where tennis was extremely popular, and it was our family sport. My parents, they played for recreational, for fun. I have an older brother, he played, so I kind of fell into that tennis family and grew into it with a really early age. When I was 3 years old, I started. But I did do other sports also, through school, and just because I was really, sporty and always wanted to run, and everything that was, just around sports was interesting to me. So I did a lot of gymnastics when I was young, and I did also track and field. I pretty much tried everything, but gymnastics and tennis was the 2 main sports that I did over years.
And Laura, I suppose, when did tennis become really prominent in your career, and to the point where you thought yourself, right, I could have a future in this, I could be a professional if I really dedicated my time? Were you maybe 14, 15 years old when that England coaches began to recommend your father and your mother and say, listen, Laura's really good at this, there could be a career for her? Or did your parents say, no, listen, we want Laura to pursue an education, we want her to finish her secondary school, start to studies, possibly college, or start to stuff like that? Because once you start in that tennis career, you really have to commit full time, because it's not only Germany, it can become very international fairly quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I can really pin it down pretty much to the age when I was around 12, because I was a really good kid already. You saw very early that I'm much more talented than most other kids my age. So even with 8, 9, 10, you saw I had, great talent to pursue in this sport. When I was 12, I won the Orange Bowl, which is the biggest junior tournament. And back at that time, it has changed a little bit since then, but back at that time, it was very important, the phase between, let's say, 12 and 18, like sponsors and everyone, like you were creating your career in that at that time. And when by the time you hit 18, you had to be world class already. Now it's much later. Now some people reach their best level when they're like in their mid-20s. And back at my time, Steffi Graf, she won Wimbledon with 17, I believe. Hingis, they were all really early, very good, and that was kind of the standard. So for me personally, when I won the Orange Bowl and when I realized I'm really world class at my age, at around 12, I realized I want to become a tennis pro. And at that time also, I was struggling in school a little bit. I still kind of had a normal life, like I went to normal school, and my parents always emphasized that they wanted me to have my full education. And I also wanted to finish my school because with professional sports, you just never know. It can work out greatly, but also you could get injured. Anything could happen, and you want to definitely have a second leg to stand on. So for me, it was clear to finish my school. But I just realized that my life is different than the ones from other children, and that I'd have to change things if I wanted to become a tennis pro. And that's the time around 12, 13, 14 years old, I realized I cannot be in a normal school. I need to do some homeschooling sort of thing or something different, because I was training 5-6 hours a day, and other kids were just like hanging out after school and had much more free time, and that was just not me. I had my path already in front of me. So that's when things really changed.
So obviously you're determined, you've sort of self-driven at a sort of young age. So were you able to put those sacrifices behind you in terms of the odd burger, the chip, the sort of recreational sort of habits that teenagers would have in terms of eating requirements? Maybe when you had your friends going to discos and late nights and sort of stuff. Were you able to quench that sort of thing? Were you so dedicated and honed into your craft that you were able to make those sacrifices even as a teenager?
Yeah, I was very driven and very focused on my goals, even at a young age. And I think I was also relatively mature for my age. And the sport of tennis, traveling from the age of 12, basically around the world, playing tennis tournaments, that really matures you very quickly. I was much further in my mind than other people, at the age of 14, 15, 16, just because I had seen a lot of the world, and I had, traveled and had to take care of my stuff, organize my stuff. I mean, obviously my mother back then was helping me with everything. She was traveling with me, but still the sport of tennis, it's an individual sport. You are by yourself with your the person that you're traveling with, and that's it. And you mature very quickly. And I think I never felt like I missed out on anything. It was my choice to become a tennis pro and make the sacrifices. And I wouldn't want to turn it in for anything. Although I know it was not a normal life, but I think the things that tennis has taught me on this road will really help me for the rest of my life, even when my career ends. I feel it every day. Those sacrifices were worth it, and I learned so much through it. So never really looked back and felt like I, missed my childhood or something. Really, really not. And also I have to say, I had 1 year where I had to finish school. Like I had to actually be in school again for the last year. So I had like a phase of 1 year where I had also some injuries, where I actually had a chance to be a normal teenager again. It was around 18, and I would go, clubbing in the weekends and all that. I kind of had that normal life back for like 1 year. And I really felt like that kind of made me see what other people were doing all the time. And I had a chance to kind of be part of that. And I realized, okay, that was cool. That was a nice phase. I finished my school, I got my degree, but now it's time to get back to where I really belong, which is the professional sports and the sacrifices that come with it.
So with that, Laura, you mentioned that about professional sport and being at an elite level at 14, 15. So at that age, were you beating girls maybe at 14 or 15? Were you beating ladies that were 21, 22? Were you beating, so in some cases, beating girls that maybe were amateur girls that maybe 7, 8, 9 years your senior?
Well, I did that before, like I did that, let's say between age 10 and 15. I would, beat people like much older than me and much like technically better players, or that were supposed to be better players. And then in my case, like my career got a crack around the age of 15. So 15, 16, 17, I didn't live up anymore to the potential that everybody said I had. And I didn't really close the gap to becoming professional. So in that age, 15, 16 onwards, I was, then supposed to have starting to have really big results on the international pro tour, and I didn't have them. But before then, I was definitely outstanding in, the kind of people that I was beating and the level that I played.
Yeah, I suppose, Laura, in terms of turning pro in 2006, and I see your it's listed now, correct me if I'm wrong, your coach is Antonio Azuca. Was he your coach from the beginning in terms of your journey, or in terms of who did you start off when you started off in a professional career? And how important was that for your family, for your mother, your father, to find that sort of right coach for you starting off? And is it a difficult procedure for a young female tennis player to start off turning professional, to find that particular coach that's going to be like a third parent, dare I say?
Yeah, that is really the crucial part, to find the right team around you, the right coach, maybe fitness coach, and all these people that are, part of the team and creating the path of your career. That's really crucial. And I think that's where there are always many factors, but for me, that was definitely where there were made some errors. So we chose the route to go private. You have also the federation supporting you and all that. And until I was around 12, I was with the federation. But then we decided that I would like private coaching and want to do, if you want, so my own thing, separate from what the federation recommends or what the federation wants you to do. So we took a private coach, and I think that's exactly where we might have taken a wrong choice. My parents and me including, we might have taken a wrong choice. And I had a coach for several years that didn't bring me forward. And that's exactly where I kind of, in those 3 years where I was really a top junior, and then wanted to go more, toward the pro path, that's where I lost the gap and I didn't make the steps forward necessary to really become pro. And, you make, I guess, life decisions, and that coach just didn't help me very much. And then after that, from 15, 16 on, I had many different coaches that I tried to work my way back into what I believed I could play. And I struggled, I have to say, finding the right person. Antonio Zucca, my current boyfriend and coach, he was back then not in the picture. He's just coaching me since 2018, 2019, basically. That's when we met. So yeah, back then when I was young, that was a couple of coaches I went through, let's say, to find the right one, basically.
And in terms of that, in terms of the professional sort of tennis circuit, and you experienced from a youngster in terms of the amount of traveling that's involved in it, in terms of, can you really have a settled base in terms of that? Are you constantly, when you sign up to that WTA circuit, is there any place that you really can call home in terms of travel?
Yeah, that is really something that is underestimated, I think, when kids say, I want to be a tennis pro. I mean, the traveling is the biggest part of your life, basically. You're every week in a different place almost. And, I think it's important to have a place that you call home, kind of a base, but realistically, you're gonna get back to it. Depends also kind of what kind of ranking position you are, a little bit, what kind of circuit planning you can do with your ranking. But overall, you're not going to be there like more than like a month or maximum 2 months out of the year, but not in one piece, like a week here and there between tournaments. And for me, that has always been Germany. Near Stuttgart is my home. But since I'm with my boyfriend, Sardinia in Italy has become my second home. And whenever we can between the tournaments, we go back home kind of to recharge and see the family. But it's weeks, sometimes months until we get back. So you have a place that you call home. You just don't get there very often.
And Laura, before I bring you on to your sort of two highlights in your terms of your singles career so far, just on the Grand Slams, I suppose at the start of every year, I suppose that's the main thing someone in the WTA Tour plans about. The Australian, the French, Wimbledon and USA Open. Are they the sort of four that you're planning at the start of the year in terms of preparation, how you're going to run into these sort of tournaments? Is that sort of key to really define form and to say a mini tournament before those sort of big tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the biggest players, they want to play good at the slams and they prepare everything to play well at the slams. And, I don't know, players somewhere between 40 and 150, let's say, also for them, the slams are very important, but they make most of their points usually in smaller tournaments throughout the year. So it depends a little bit what category player you are, let's say. But obviously for everybody, concerning money and points, the Grand Slams are the most important tournaments of the year. So you try the months before, the weeks before the slam, you try to prepare to have your highest performance at the slam. That's absolutely the way. Yeah, it's just if you're in the top 10, probably after the slam you'd make some rest, you take a vacation, maybe go back home and all that. Where if you're like 50 in the world, you got to keep your points rolling. Like you got to go play the next week and the next week and the next week. You just have to have different scheduling. It's not that you can focus only on the 8 biggest tournaments of the year.
And Laura, your highest ranking in the world has been number 27, but I imagine there was 1 or 2 times where you were probably only a win or 2 away from breaking into that sort of top 10 in the world in terms of ranking. Is that gap between say 30 to the top 10, is it so little in terms of, does all it take is 1 or 2 wins in the right direction?
No, I don't think I ever had a shot to get into the top 10. There is a huge gap still between if you're around 30 or getting into the top 10. I mean, obviously from the ranking system, the point gaps get bigger and bigger the more you go up. And so, where I'm not exactly sure, I'd have to also look it up, but to go from 30 to 20, it's probably the same way as to go from 80 to 30. So it's really a huge gap, and the higher you climb, the more wins, the more points you need. I don't think that the difference there is so small, and it's also about consistency. Breaking into the top 10, you don't do that by having one great result. You can get 30 or 40 by having 1 good 2 tournaments. If you want to be in the top 10, you just have to, play that level on a very regular basis throughout the year.
And I suppose, Laura, I'll bring you on now to your first major high point in your career. And obviously 2016 was a great year for you in terms of the US Open. You got to turn around the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. You got to the quarterfinal. I'm going to touch on the Olympics in a minute. But the singles, the 2016 Swedish Open, you beat Katarina Zinakova in the final over 2 sets, 7-5, 6-1. You came in into the tournament as the sort of 6th seed. How was that for you, your first professional sort of singles sort of title in the WTA circuit? And had you a good vibe going into that sort of tournament?
Yeah, I mean, 2016 was my breakthrough year, and I just had great results. It didn't start out very well, I remember, in January and February, if I remember right. But I had then just really good results, including the final in Stuttgart, and then going to the Olympics, which was a dream fulfilled for me. Just played well throughout the whole year, and I was healthy also. And then in Boston, when I won my first title, that was just kind of a dream week. I played just great clay court tennis, and I was very fit. I had 5 matches in a row where I yeah, where I pretty much dominated, um, and I have great memories of that. It was a dream for me, to climb up in the rankings, how I did back then, and also to win a title. And yeah, I just remember it really, really. It's some of the greatest memories I have on the tour.
Yeah, and how pleasing that was, 2016. I no doubt for me, in my mind, the most pleasing moment would have to be to win your own Open, the Stuttgart Open in 2017. But it's the quality of opponents that you beat on your in terms of that. You had to go through the hard side of the draw. You beat Carolina Pliskova. Then you had to beat probably the world-renowned #1 for a few years, Simona Halep, in the semi-final. Beat her over 2 sets, and then Kristina Mladenovic in a thriller in terms of the final, an absolute thriller that went 3 sets, and then sudden death on the final sets decided as well. Tell me, that sudden death, was that sort of the most nerve-wracking for you in terms of your whole tennis sort of career? It's your home Open, it's deadlocked, it's 1 set apiece, sudden death, everything's that sort of stake for you. You're the hometown girl, you're the sort of home favorite. Was that the most difficult sudden death you've ever played in tennis in your entire life?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, it was a tough situation because I had played the finals the year before out of the qualies. So it's always tough. I had to defend a lot of points, and I felt a lot of pressure to perform well again in 2017. So when I went in the tournament, I said to my coach, I just want to win the first round. I just want to show the people I have the level and I belong here in this main draw, and I just want to win the first round, and that's it. Then the rest that comes, it's great. So I won the first round really, pretty sovereign. And then I really felt like, hey, I'm actually playing great again on this surface. The surface in Stuttgart is very particular. It's a clay court, but it's not a real clay court like the outdoor clay courts. So I felt really comfortable on it right away. And then round by round, I just realized I'm playing very good tennis, and I'm like, mentally the pressure kind of relieved a little bit after, performing well again, and playing great tennis again in front of my home crowd. And then once I made it to the finals, obviously, then you want to win the thing. And I lost already a final there against Kerber the year before. So you really don't want to lose again in the finals. So, I really was determined to win this time. And I started out great. I remember first set was like something like 6-2. Then I lost the second just as easy. So it went to the third, and I was down 1-4 in the tiebreaker in the third set. And I remember it was, extremely nerve-wracking, everything. The crowd was supporting me as much as they could. And I just wanted to win that thing, but it doesn't help you in that moment. You got to win point by point. It doesn't, just the will to win, it's worth nothing in that moment. You got to find solutions for the game. And Mladenovic was actually just playing very good tennis at that point. She played a great tiebreak. And at 1-4, I remember thinking to myself, you just can't win this anymore. You're going to lose another finals here. And then, I pushed that thought aside, and I was like, okay, just try to make it as difficult as possible anymore. But again, someone her caliber, if you're down 1-4 in a tiebreak, the chances are just very slim that you're going to turn it around. And I remember, having that sensation. And I just thought, yeah, just try whatever you can in your, under your control, just try to do that as well as you can. And then if she gets nervous, if she gives you a chance, then take it. That's all you can do at this point. And I did that, and I played it perfectly, and I did turn the thing around, and was very surprised that I did when I actually won that tiebreak. Yeah.
I suppose, Laura, in terms of doubles career now, 10 titles, and the most highlighted moment, US Open win with Vera Zanareva. And tell me, in terms of doubles partners, because something that struck me particularly in Ireland, that sometimes in double partners in women's tennis, it doesn't necessarily have to be from the same country. It's very, sometimes you see German players with French players, and French players with Romanians, and Romanians with Australians. Is it just friendships that you've built up over the years in terms of that sort of circuit that you said, right, we can align here, just something how do these doubles arrangements come to pass? Like, how did yourself and Vera Zanareva decide she wanted to pursue a tag teams, just tag doubles career, dare I say, in terms of that?
Well, the doubles teams, they come together it's mostly about the ranking, really, because you need to find a partner that you get in with in the tournaments, and you need to combine the rankings and meet the cutoff. So a lot of times, countrymen, it doesn't matter. Great if you have someone from your country that meets all the criteria, meaning has the ranking that you need to get into the tournaments, plays the side that you need them to play on, because for example I play only the ad side, I need someone who plays do side. So all these criteria, game wise, strategy wise, some players just fit your game better, they complement your game better than others. So if someone from your country meets all these criteria, obviously that's the best case scenario, like it is for example with Siniakova, Krajcikova, that are both from Czech Republic. But most of the times these criteria are met from some player that's not from your country, and that's how that happens, that the countries mix. And then sometimes things happen also a little bit randomly, like when Vera and I first played, I was just kind of looking for someone. She had the game style that I was looking for, she had the ranking that I was looking for, but I really didn't know her at all. But then it was a chance, she asked me if I wanted to play, and I thought, well, that could actually, from her game style, could fit really well, and that's how we started to play. It could have been also a disaster. It turns out my kind of intuition was right, and we actually fit really well, and that's how we ended up winning the US Open in 2020. But sometimes it's also just kind of trial and error. You have an idea, you might play well with someone, but then it turns out on the court it's not working as well as you thought, or maybe communication isn't as good as you thought. It's just kind of like you try out playing with people, and then obviously you stick with the ones you like to play with.
I suppose, Laura, you're entering now dare I say, you're still very young in terms of your professional tennis career, but you're entering, and from my research, you're entering into your sort of early sort of 30s now, and obviously life decisions in terms of you mentioned there about relationships, family planning, all that sort of comes into sort of play now. How more difficult is it to be in your 30s in terms of a professional sort of tennis player in the WTA circuit? Is there a certain cutoff where maybe life matters and life occasions and family planning comes into place, that you have to say, right, I need to put interest now comes first? It's different. I know it's different between males and females, but obviously there is that point if you have desires in terms of pursuing children and sorts of stuff like that, and it does obviously, to come back from that, it is a personal road as well. So is that sort of, does that become a conscious issue for female tennis players when they get into their 30s?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like everywhere in other careers. At the end, professional tennis is a career, and it's a bit easier, or let's say a lot easier, for guys to pursue their career and still have a family on the side, or travel in tennis, having the girlfriend travel with them with a child or something. For the females, I think it is just much more difficult, because if they want to have a family, they're out with the pregnancy, they have to work their way back to their physical and playing level that they were before. We see now, which is a great thing, that there are many girls doing that, and they become mothers, and then they still come back on tour and play professionally. And it's also great to see that on the tour now we have, we are having the infrastructure that it's possible to have the family on the tour with you, to have children on the tour and still be playing at a great level. So all those things are great to see. Nevertheless, tennis is a career, and exactly how you mentioned, the life, the normal life, the family, all these things, unless you are really one of the top gaining players, top 10 in the world, and money doesn't matter, and you can take them all with you all year long, if you're not in that league, then your family is kind of on the side. They are at home. You have maybe one person you're traveling with, or two, maybe your boyfriend, your coach, or then if it becomes your husband, your coach. maybe with the child, but it's not like you have your whole family with you. So at some point there is definitely the question, like, how long do you want to pursue the career? Do you sacrifice to have that career for your personal life, and or how can you combine both? It's also in the end a matter of finances. Yeah. So all these questions, obviously, when you're in your 20s, they don't matter as much because you have a lot of time. Once you hit the early 30s, then these thoughts are crossing your mind more and more often, and you got to take the decisions also. And that's exactly where I am. You know, it's a subject between my boyfriend and me. We're thinking about how long am I going to play still. I still do want to play, but at some point there is definitely that that decision to be made, because for me, having a child and then still being on tour is probably not an option. For me, family is really like settling down and being in one place, like kind of a normal life. That's what I've always pictured. I would have never thought I'd play until 35 anyway, so I'm already far over my schedule. But yeah, overall, I see those things a bit separate, and I would like to have my career, but then when I decide to have a family, that's the moment when I want to settle down and be in one place. And yeah, for now, I still want to play, but you know, these thoughts are definitely there, and I will have to, you know, it won't be endlessly that I will be playing.
I suppose, Laura, lastly, just second last question for you now, because I know time is catching up with us. Just basically, my question for you: we see in the men's game what Djokovic has done, what Federer and Nadal have started created, that sort of legacy in the men's game. But what the Williams sisters did, Venus and Serena, and you probably came up across them once or twice in your career, maybe have played them once or twice. Will we ever see that again in the women's game? What those two did for decades, in terms of 2 decades, in terms of that level of consistency, in terms of being the tournament, they rivaled what the men's did and what they did for professional tennis in the last 20 years in terms of Venus and Serena. Will we see that again, do you think?
I think obviously it is very hard to achieve what all these players have achieved, like someone like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, the ones you mentioned also on the women's side. It's incredible to achieve something like that, but never say no. I think, you know, there are always going to be some talents and some generations that just gonna go through. Look at Iga Swiatek now, for example. I mean, I could see her potentially, you know, if she stays healthy and all that, dominating through a long period of time. It depends also, you know, what kind of rivals you have in that period. If you're like the only one with an exceptional level, a little bit better than all the others, or if there are several that are kind of, you know, how do you say, like taking the victories from each other. But I do believe that there is always a chance for someone to become the next legend, let's say. I do believe in that. Is it gonna be like, you know, in the fabric, like on the I don't know what you call, like like reproducible easily? No, I mean, these are just fascinating athletes that are like one of a kind. But I do believe it's possible that there are some legends like this again.
And Laura, lastly, from me to you, Laura Siegemund, from me, Jim Conlan, to you, speaking to you on the airways today. When you look back in your career and everything you have achieved, and you mentioned that real pedigree underage, and in terms of that real talent and being talked up as a world beater, are you sort of content in terms of what you've achieved in your career so far, or do you feel maybe that you've underachieved in certain areas, or do you feel maybe that that tennis has been good to you, but do you feel that maybe in your own mind, or your perfectionist, do you feel that you mightn't have reached the lofty heights that you thought your God-given talent had given you?
Yeah, that's exactly always why I played. I wanted to go out and have the feeling I did really everything that was within my potential, because I'm a perfectionist and I want to get the best outcome possible. And looking back at my career, there were definitely things, particularly in my early years, like speaking between 15 and 25, that things didn't go well at all. And I sometimes wonder what would have happened if those went, you know, if we made the right decisions and just things like kept going in the best possible way. So there is definitely some regret in my early years, but I am very proud about how I managed those, you know, downsides of my early career, and how I still kind of kept going and never lost the faith in what I believed I could play. And I did show that I can be, you know, a really top athlete and be also there consistently, even through my injuries and all that I had in the last years. I'm just like a stand-up person. Like, I don't know how you call it. You fall, you get back up, you fall, you get back up. And that's something that I'm really proud of. And I think I didn't have an easy way at all, considering all those injuries and all those, maybe not great choices at the early stage of my career. But I still, you know, became a world-class player. And this is something I'm really proud of. In the end, as a perfectionist, you always think, could I have maybe done that better? Or could I still do this and this better? I'm still playing, so I'm still, you know, trying to achieve more than what I have achieved. But overall, I think I can be really thankful for the career I had. I can be really thankful for the experiences I made and the person it made me, because if one thing that I learned is, you know, to get back up when I fall down. And I think this is a great lesson that maybe only professional sports can teach you in this way. And this is something that I'm really grateful for.
Laura Siegemund, on that note, thanks for joining us today to share your story to the rise of professional tennis in terms of labels as a child pedigree growing up in Germany, in terms of professional females tennis, to achieve lofty heights, two-time Grand Slam victories to your name in Sweden and also in your hometown, Stuttgart, quarterfinalists in the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, Grand Slam USA Open champion in terms of the doubles with Vera Zonariva, and 10 double career titles to your name as well. Highest ranking of 27th in the world as well. Definitely, Laura, the story is yet to be told. In terms, I know you're in Miami and Indian Wells at this week. We wish you all the best with that, and hopefully the Grand Slams go well for you this year, and hopefully, who knows, there's one or two more titles left in you just yet. Anyway.
Yes, I hope so too. Thanks very much for the conversation.
Cheers, Laura. Okay. Take care.
All the best. Ciao.